talking about a couple coverages that are sort of particular to Florida and that you really need to address, especially with the hurricanes. Kevin's going to start us with law and ordinance.
There's a coverage under your homeowners policy that's called law and ordinance or ordinance and law coverage. And what that does is it provides additional funds under your policy to cover the increased cost of construction to your home because of an ordinance or a law, not because of any direct damage. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you live in Brevard County, if you suffer damage to the framing of your window, okay, after a hurricane, as is very common that happens, the current building code says that when you rebuild that property, those windows have to be built to a certain strength, and they have to be also, there has to be shutters involved.
Or either impact glass or shutters.
Impact glass or shutters. And think about Hurricane Andrew when it happened in the early 90s. Down in the Homestead area, because of the catastrophic damage, like nothing anybody had ever seen before from a hurricane, catastrophic damage, you've got the local authorities that are coming out playing damage control, trying to convince people, hey, we are not going to let this happen again. Something this terrible will never happen again. And the way they do that is they start to enforce new building codes. For example, improvements to the roof-to-wall connections, changes in the elevation requirements for a home that's too close to the water, changes in elevation. All of these are going to cost, items such as that are going to cost more money when you have your house repaired or have your house rebuilt. And because those costs had nothing to do with the way your house was before the loss, your homeowner's policy doesn't owe you anything for that unless you have enough insurance under the ordinance and law part of the policy. And that's why it's important to talk to the agent to know exactly what the codes are in your area and how they could impact the rebuilding of your house after damage.
Even now, last October, they passed a law. If you put a new roof on, you have to have a secondary water-resistant barrier. Right. So if those shingles blow off, there's another layer that's going to protect you before the house leaks. And typically that's like a peel and stick foam rubber. Now they lay down and it covers all the cracks, and a lot of times they do the whole roof. So if your shingles blow off, your roof won't leak. That's the biggest problem. You can get water damage. So those codes change. So take your roof. I think it's about $2,000 more per year to do that. So the insurance company, your roof blows off, you call the insurance company and say, hey, listen, your roof was $8,000 to replace it. Well, now I need this barrier. Well, hey, without law and ordinance coverage, they wouldn't pay the $2,000. With law and ordinance, you get that $2,000. So you do want to make sure you have that. Keep in mind it comes in different levels. Some policies give you 10% of the value of the house. Again, we'll use a $100,000 house. 10% is $10,000. If you do, you can buy 25%, which would be on a $100,000 house would be $25,000. Again, you can go to 50%, which would be $50,000 on a $100,000 house. What you want to do though is at least make sure you know where you stand. Don't just ignore it and put your head in the sand and say, this will never happen to me. This is Florida. We have fires. We have hurricanes. So these things do happen, so you want to pay attention to it.
Absolutely. It's extremely important that you talk to your insurance agent. They can help you understand what the current ordinances, what the current building codes are, and make sure that that coverage that you have reflects today's standard.
And that keeps changing. It's sort of like a moving target because the more damage there is, the stronger the code gets. Right. They're trying to prevent this from happening again.
And something else that happens to properties in Florida all the time, just because of the nature of our surroundings, just because of our geographic location, is mold damage.
Yeah, mold is a big issue, and one of the things, and I'll give you the history to this and some of the problems. Back in, I believe it was 2001, there was a case in Texas where a kid got sick, or I shouldn't say the kid got sick. There was some damage in the bathroom, and they didn't find all the damage. There was some buried mold, and that mold grew, and it turned into the worst kind of mold, a black mold. And the kid went into his lungs because mold spores are in the air, and he had to get surgery. So the client said, hey, we're not going to sue the insurance company to fix our house. We're going to sue them because they acted in bad faith. And they actually sued the insurance company for $100 million. I think when it was all said and done, they ended up with $30 million. At that point in time, attorneys got wise, and they said their motto was, mold is gold.
Right.
And so they started just suing. And at one point, the average Texas homeowner was paying $400 a year in their homeowner's policy just for mold losses. So they got smart and said, listen, we're not going to sell homeowners insurance anymore. And then the state came back and said, listen, let's put a $10,000 cap on there. You got to give the guy $10,000. And the insurance company thought that was a good idea because they could just pay their $10,000 and walk away from the claim.
Right.
However, in Florida, you got to think about this, $10,000. Here's what happens. Let me give you an example. We have a hurricane, you get some water damage, water comes into the windows, the eaves, the roof, something like that. Your floor is covered in water, the power goes out. It's 90 degrees in your house. Mold's going to grow, and it's going to grow fast. I mean, your house is going to be a petri dish. So what do? You try to suck it up, but you have no power because you don't have a vacuum cleaner. So you wait for the air conditioning to come back on. You turn it on full blast. You suck up all those mold spores, and then you blow them through your house. You're going to have a lot more mold damage. We really suggest that you buy at least $25,000 coverage. You don't have to, but at least know what you have or don't have so that you're not caught short.
Right, and the Texas example is perfect for how it can actually hurt somebody versus what it's going to do to your property. I mean, mold is extremely damaging to almost every house in Florida is susceptible to mold damage. So it's extremely important that you have enough insurance to pay to replace that part of the house that's damaged by the mold and pay to clean up the part of the house that's damaged by the mold, and it's not cheap. These contractors that specialize in that can charge a pretty hefty sum, particularly after a catastrophic loss. So it's extremely important that you talk to your insurance agent and make sure that you know exactly where you stand if what is costing money to fix your house is mold damage.
Actually, about 3 or 4 years ago, there was no limit on it. That is now changed at the $10,000 limit on a base policy. Again, you can buy $25,000, you can buy $50,000. One of the companies I know for a fact actually removed it completely from their policy, and so they sent a letter, with your 400 pages of documents. Hey, we've taken away your mold. If you want it back, call your agent. Well, if you didn't call your agent, your mold coverage went away and you didn't realize it. So again, review your policy. Call your agent. Go over it with them. If you want a second opinion, we'd love for you to call us at the Insurance Center of Central Florida. The number's below.